Hello and welcome to another episode of Feminist Deconstructed. I'm your host, Dr. G. I hope you enjoy this one because I'm going to go over my personal male privilege and how it's bullshit. So starting off, let's go with the definition of male privilege. According to the dictionary, it is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. This is the literal definition. I will not deviate from this definition. This is the definition that I accept. So at any point in time that male privilege is used in a disconjoined manner from the dictionary, I consider it a fallacy and no longer worth arguing. But let's go into this interesting list of male privileges and deconstruct it for what it's worth. First, let's get where it came from. It's based on a Peggy McIntosh's article on white privilege. So it is not actually a list of male privileges that she seems to think exist, but this is one that was created by somebody whoever wrote this article, and I'll show you the source therein. It'll also be linked in the description below. But to give you an example of the few privileges which male people have is what's listed here. And what I find erroneous and stupid about this entire list is the way it's broken up, the way it projects, and the way it's melded together. So here's the first 14. It continues on to 27, and here's another complete full list of all these privileges that men have that women do not for some bizarre reason. Who knows why they don't have these privileges? What some of them are absolutely ridiculous, as you'll see here. And finally, their last page has two more, just in case we missed it. And the last one in particular, I have the privilege of being unaware of my male privilege, is an absolute ridiculous statement. It's the original sin. I'm just not aware that I've been a sinner this whole time. So let's go through and break them down, shall we? The two that I found that were power envy, meaning that women in the position of power are envious of other men in positions of power, or that men do not deserve this position of power. These are the two that I found most aligned with power envy, and it's my elected official are mostly people of my own sex. This implies that most elected officials are male. This is not true, but we can roll with it because it's apparently a male privilege. Also, if women sought positions of power, they would have positions of power. In today's dichotomy, especially with diversity councils and whatnot, it's more likely for a woman to get a position over a man if they had the same credentials and qualifications, regardless of the biases that your resume studies demonstrate. The next one is the when I ask to see a person in charge, often it will be face a person of my own sex. This may or may not be true. It depends on where I go. If I'm in a hospital and asked to see the head nurse, it's not going to be a male. I can guarantee you that, because 80 to 90% of women enter the nursing field over men. If you ask to see the head doctor, chances are it's a female over a male, because most women enter into healthcare. So where you asking this question will give you a varied result. Unfortunately, sexual dimorphism refutes both of these on the grounds that women choose different professions than men. So it's an absolute ridiculous statement for both of these. The next section was female biology related. Now, we can assume that these might actually indeed be male privileges, because some of these, if not all, we cannot do. We can't have children. We cannot be menstruating, as the last one says. But the two that I found very interesting, which I think is erroneous to say the least, if I'm not conventionally attractive to the disadvantages are relatively small and easy to ignore, this is not necessarily true. I vehemently disagree with this. More attractive men get higher positions. Less attractive men end up working in lower positions. And it's their attractiveness is a part of their dominance cycle as far as males are concerned. And I'm sure that feminists will love that I'm using the dominance position, but we are, in fact, animals. And attractiveness is one of the key indicators for sex appeal. And sex appeal happens to drive up social status and also increases your self-esteem. In fact, the less attractive you are, the lower your self-esteem is more likely to be. Both male and females exhibit this. So, I mean, how are these privileges? Is it a privilege that we do not reproduce? Meaning that we do not carry the child? Or we don't menstruate? And some of these are quite interesting. Now, the first one I'd like to point out, one particular interesting point, is it's true that our masculinity will not be called into question if you choose to not have children. However, your masculinity will be called into question if you're not there to support child. However, your masculinity will be called into question if you do not support the child that you have created. How's that for a flip on that? I guess that's a male privilege that you're considered a piece of shit if you don't look after your own children. Funny how the flip is also true. These are all job related, and I found those kind of interesting, that most of these are failing for career, not having a good job, not getting a better job. And some of these kind of repeat, like the person in charge, for example. I put it in there twice because it indeed repeats itself and they kind of line up to both. Now, the other thing that I thought I'd point out in the job or career is the clear envy that is displayed for the positions of power happen to be male positions of power. If a woman wanted that position, they would go for it. So instead of cringing about not having said power, why aren't you seeking said power to take said power? Or you're just going to complain that a man's in charge. It's interesting that those that complain about the position never seem to actually go for said position. The last one, number 28, I'm not interrupted as often as women are interrupted by men. Here's a little collage I put together to prove that one wrong.
The opportunity for men to raise issues that are important to them is very limited. And just to give you a flavour, Mr. Chairman, of the type of things that... and if you think of the issues that I raised about the high suicide rate amongst men, the lower achievement of boys in schools, the health problems that don't get reported, like testicular cancer, the underreporting of male domestic violence, the problem many fathers having getting access to the children.
Will you be going to DWP questions to raise people who commit suicide through sanctions, largely men?
Hold on a second.
Just today, there's an opportunity.
Jess, you've had your say. I didn't interrupt you in what you had to say. Look, I always vote in favour of true equality. I don't know if Jess was selected on an all-women shortlist for her selection.
Did you vote for gay marriage?
It was a tiny little comment.
What did you say?
It was just about the way that somebody was being addressed. So let's just do this.
And what's happened to you as a result of it?
Well, so first of all, let's just start at the top. Does social media reveal men's... I mean, absolutely, of course it does. And we've known that these attitudes are out there for a long time. And social media does exactly that. It's always done that. It takes all these opinions from around the world. But it actually does a lot more than that as well. The other thing that it does is it allows people to access you when you should be safe in your home. You know, suddenly, once upon a time, if there were 100 people gathered outside your house shouting something at you, you would have called the police and it would have been dealt with. But these days, because of social media, people from all over the world, people you would otherwise probably not go anywhere near.
2 hours later.
And the thing is, you know, I'm not particularly interested in a professional provocateur who goes out and says deliberately outrageous things, like I do, turning around and then playing the victim when she doesn't like ridicule or criticism afterwards.
I don't say anything outrageous.
Ridicule, let me finish. I let you finish. I let you finish, so stop.
Inadequate response to what... Would you please be quiet? I'm asking you now to please leave the room. Please remove this lady.
Did you have any communication with any Russian businessmen or any Russian nationals?
I don't believe I had any conversation with Russian businessmen or Russian nationals.
Are you aware of any communication?
A lot of people were at the convention. It's conceivable that somebody
Sir,
came
I
up to me.
have just a few...
Will you let me qualify it? If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying. I think so.
So did you not consult it before you came before this committee, knowing we would ask you questions about it?
Well, we talked about it. The policy is
Did you ask that it would be shown to you?
The policy is based on the principle that the president...
Sir, I'm not asking about the principle. I'm asking when you
would
be asked these questions and you would rely on that policy. Did you...
you, Seattle, for being one of the most progressive cities in the United States of America.
We want an opportunity to address. We want an opportunity on the mic.
Well, ask him.
Get him in check and we're shutting this event down now. If you do not listen to her, your event will be shut down right now.
Next, we have harassment related. And these kind of could be male, but also males experience this as well, as we've seen with the Me Too campaign, the hashtag that's been continuing on Facebook, Twitter, what have you, that men have come out and said they've also been sexually harassed in Hollywood for positions in film and whatnot by gay men. In fact, one of the ones that tried to sleep with a child came out and said, "Oh, I'm gay," trying to get out of the pedophilia that he clearly tried to do. One of the things that I think was interesting is being labeled a slut or slut bashing is considered a male privilege. Interesting that the only criticism of people calling a woman a slut, well, not only, but a majority of it, is women bashing women for being a slut, as if it's a bad thing. Men would seek a slut, especially if you're a young virile man that is single. You definitely seek out them sluts because it's easier to get in their pants. Not gonna lie, men do that. However, women tend to bash other women for their promiscuity. That's the word I was looking for. So, how is this a male privilege when we don't ridicule sluts? In fact, we look for them. That doesn't make sense whatsoever to me. And again, number 28, I consider it also harassment, so double in there. But you'll see what I'm talking about. That, men can interrupt women. Women also interrupt men. Both instances are considered very rude and undignified. Funny how women get in a position of power or get a social standing to be one of the loudest voices, and then they proceed to be a bully. Finally, this ain't the final one. Female beauty envy. Apparently, the issues of feminine beauty, or the standards set up by other women in general, are our problem, our male's problem. I do not have to worry about the message my wardrobe sends about my sexual availability or gender conformity. Yes, it does for both male and female participants. You'd be surprised what a wardrobe would do for attracting women, depending on what you dress up like. You look more successful, you're probably to attract a more attractive woman. You look like a hobo that's living on the street, you probably won't attract anybody. You stink like a camel's ass, you're not going to attract anybody. Men and women have different beauty standards, but it all relates to attractiveness and being attracted to the opposite sex. And same sex if you're gay. Either way, I completely disagree with that one. How is that a male privilege? It's a beauty standard. It has nothing to do with privileges that I might obtain for being a man. Same thing with the clothing. That doesn't make any sense to me, that the higher up in linens you go, the more rugged it's going to be. That's not true at all. That seems to be a more petty issue, if you ask me. Grooming regimen, I'd have to agree with this one. This could be a male privilege. It takes us a lot less time for us to get ready than it does a woman. However, we don't have to put on makeup and face paint. Neither does a woman, for that matter. So you could get ready as fast as a man could. Depends on how much you want to be attractive to the person you're going out with or getting ready for. How well you want to present yourself, in other words. Seems a very petty and stupid thing. Same thing with the conventionally attractive. This is a female beauty standard. You're holding your own standards up to men and expecting men to say, well, see, you guys don't have to deal with it. In fact, all of these are pretty much the same thing. And I object to each one of them because it's beauty standards. It does not advantage or disadvantage us in any way, shape, or form. You're holding feminine beauty standards up to masculine views. Makes no sense. And here's some stereotypical nonsense that I thought was pretty interesting. These are all stereotypes that apply to women. Now, whether or not you believe in that stereotype is completely separate from male privilege or male dominance. In no way do we benefit from any of these, which is just absolutely stupid, because every single one of these may or may not be true. A stereotype does exist for a certain reason. However, not all those stereotypes are actually true. In fact, some of these stereotypes are completely untrue, yet you subject us to it as if they were. I thought that feminist intersectionality hated stereotyping, and then you proceed to stereotype. Here's another great sophist argument. And here's the jealous projection of sex differentiators. And I only found two, and the last one is being the obvious one, that I have privilege of being unaware of my privilege. You've yet to demonstrate to me that I have any privileges, any benefits or bonuses of being a male that puts me in a better position than a female. I have the same opportunities as everyone else. In fact, I have had less opportunities than females in my past. So I completely disagree with this. I'd like to point out, after reading the original source article as well, that the list that she created was not generalizable, meaning it did not apply to all. So there go. This list cannot necessarily apply to all either. It's just a cringe list of complaints from an anonymous person complaining about language. I mean, this is a very petty argument right here. All men are created equal, mailman, chairman, freshman. You're complaining about language, and language is gendered, and you hate that. That's a very petty argument. If you don't like gendered languages, make up your own. It's a demonstration of the evolution of our species that we have made up gendered positions with gendered labels. In fact, the only one that I don't think you could reverse in that entire list of language is freshman, because it's a very distinct application. You're talking about the first-year student. Although you could say fresh woman, they're also a first-year student. I don't see why you couldn't. Seems petty. These are all petty to me. And the source of this that I found was a PDF on MIT's website. Yes, sap.mit.edu. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology has succumbed to social justice. It's a pretty sad time when a STEM college thinks it's cool to talk about male privilege when it has no bearing on any of the STEM fields. It's a complete opinion piece, and it's their opinion that male privilege exists. However, I've yet to see it demonstrated once that male privilege does, in fact, exist, that we are benefited for the mere fact of being a male. Much of it seems to be projection, much of it seems to be stereotyping, and a whole lot of it is projection of their opinions upon males as if that was valid or true. And when I get into the white privilege section in my next video, I'm going to outline and demonstrate how all of this is complete nonsense. I'm going to go over the source article of this one and point out the list. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did with this one, because this was just basically the little blurb at the top and then a list of male privileges that weren't really privileging males. That's all I have for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the cringe fest that I put in the middle there, considering these are prominent females that are also feminists, that are also doing exactly what they say is a male privilege. With, and I'd like to point this out, each one of those males stayed silent while the woman spoke. When you cut somebody off, it's disrespectful. So, watch this one to the end and do that cheesy shit of whatever. Thank you. Bye for now. Oh, I just stole Noel's plums. And thank you. See you next time.